Honestly, I'm just more pissed that the bets I had in that game that were all like massive close. You know how this works. Just all massive closing line value. I mean, phenomenal. None of them won. That's what because I went into this game with the expectations the Eagles were going to lose. I know, really, like I said, the only bet I won was Cowboys -3.
I was fingertips away from.
Sometimes, man, a closing line value, it'll get you. Good signal, though.
Whenever you feel real good going into something like, man, I crushed this. You know, if closing line value paid out in cash, I'd be a millionaire.
Wouldn't we all? Well, actually, a lot of us wouldn't be, but.
Right. That's the problem. They probably won more bets than me yesterday.
Yeah, man. Been there many, many times. It's not a good feeling.
And then, you know, the worst part, Mike, you've been muted the whole time. The worst part is all you can do is keep making those bets because you're on the right side.
Yeah.
No wonder you weren't listening to me.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to a special edition of the Monday NFL Strategy Show. It is not a showdown strategy show. It is a two-game doubleheader Monday Night Football strategy show, which I am very much looking forward to. Now, both games are the same time. They're both 8:15. I don't know. Explain that one to me. I guess it doesn't make a difference. Miami, Tennessee, Giants, Green Bay Packers. Big prize pools today. Two games that maybe get out of hand. Spoiler, I think the Giants could cover even with Tommy DeVito under center. But lots to get into. Usually Matt and I take a different approach. It's showdown, right? But today we'll still go position by position. We'll go position by position and we'll try and iron things out. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. We'll build a lineup at the end and try and figure out, well, how are we jamming in Miami Dolphins as 14-point favorites against the Tennessee Titans? But before we do, Matt Gajewski with me as always at Matt_Gajewski. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. Excited for two games. Luckily, in today's era of football, all you got to do is throw on the double box and you get to watch both games. If you're still using regular cable, I suggest switching over to some streaming service so you don't have to flip back and forth between your two games. Even though there might be blowouts, I'm still looking forward to it.
What are you using for double box?
I just have YouTube TV.
So I have YouTube TV as well. I wasn't sure. I know ESPN does like a double box on stream or something, which I've never tried. I don't know if I'd like that.
You don't like watching two games?
I do, but how do they do it? Like, is the audio on one of them or something?
Yep. You choose which one you want audio for.
Okay. I just put one on each TV. But to be fair, I choose which audio I want one for anyway. So I don't have.
You have it better. If you have two TVs, you got.
Sure. I don't have dueling audio though. No, that's what I was asking. Like, is the ESPN dual stream is not bad? It actually like looks okay, and it doesn't. It's not bad. I've wondered that. I've never clicked into it.
Oh, it's awesome. And for college football, college basketball, you can go quad box. It's great. You have two TVs. You could go octo box. Imagine.
That's kind of neat. Yeah. Yeah.
You are going to be living pretty during March Madness.
No, I have YouTube TV as well. It's actually, I was paying such a ridiculous price for cable, like insane. Had cable boxes in like every room, total waste of money in the long run. So I'm with you, man. But we've got two games. Who knows? Maybe we won't want to watch either of these. My dumbass stayed up and watched all of that Eagles game last night. I saw it coming. Look, I said it all week. I tweeted before the game started that I feel an all-time I forget what I said, like an all-time I forget what I called it. Type of game coming on. And I was hoping to be wrong. Wasn't wrong at all. They stink. The defense stinks. I mean, the Cowboys will find a way to blow it. So I'm not particularly worried about that, Matt, once we get into the postseason. But well, when Ben and I do our strategy show tomorrow and we have our tiers of like Super Bowl contenders, playoff teams, I got to take the Philadelphia Eagles and knock them down a peg, man. That was a bad, bad game. Back-to-back bad games against two good teams.
There's like maybe, especially in the AFC, like 8 teams, I think that could actually do something in the playoffs. I mean, the NFC is so damn weak that I still think the Eagles are right there. I think you could maybe put them behind the 49ers and the Cowboys, but if you played that game again, you played it at home or on a neutral field, I don't think the spread is anywhere outside 3 in that game. Obviously, you get weird results in a one-game sample, but I mean, I still think they're clearly a top 3 team in the NFC and right there to like potentially go back to the Super Bowl. I mean, you won't have the bye, which hurts you likely if things hold, but I mean, it's still an awesome team, and all the good teams are in the AFC.
Yeah, I don't think they are a good team, a very good team.
I think they're clearly better than the Lions. Buccaneers are awful. Vikings are awful. Packers aren't great. We'll talk about them. And then the teams that might make a push, like Rams, Seahawks, Falcons, Saints. I mean, like your path to an NFC championship is pretty easy.
Fair point.
Well, yeah, like I think they make the playoffs. All I'm saying, Matt, is when you look at these games, if you were to use like a luck rating or whatever, clearly one of the luckiest teams in the league. You know, MVS drops touchdown, Chiefs drop 100 passes. Josh Allen miscommunication with Gabe Davis wide open in the end zone. But all I'm saying is you could go back and just you could be like, oh yeah, well you're cherry picking. Not really. All I'm saying is their defense isn't very good.
I mean, you could use anecdotal evidence on both sides of this. And I mean, I don't think it's likely that they go back and win a Super Bowl, but I think it's maybe a little more likely than you two think.
It's still fresh.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I mean, you guys are 10-3.
Yeah. Still, I think we're a paper tiger though. I think that's a very empty 10-3. We'll see, Matt. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
I don't know. I don't have strong opinions on this.
When you can't, I'm just saying when you can't stop good offenses, you're gonna have like the only way the Eagles win is by going shot for shot offensively because they're not going to win with the defense. But that's all right.
How many times did they use Hurts as a design runner last night? I fell asleep at halftime.
A decent amount early on. He fumbled a few times.
Which isn't a reason to stop.
No, of course not. But also the Eagles offensive coordinator is terrible. Brian Johnson. It's very bad.
Yeah, I mean, you have a skill that 2/3 of the NFL can't use with a quarterback that can actually run. It's kind of what we talked about earlier. You have an elite skill set from your QB, and half of it comes in the ground, and you don't use it because perhaps you want to keep him healthy, and you lose games. It's like if he gets hurt, you're going to lose games. If you don't use his skills to the best of his potential, you're going to lose games too. So I don't understand why they don't run him more. But again, I fell asleep at halftime. I don't know how much they did do that.
I wish I fell asleep at halftime. Ready to talk some Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
Hey guys, appreciate you being with us. If you haven't done so yet, take one single second this Monday morning, atone for your sins. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below if you're listening or watching after the fact. That stuff, believe it or not, goes a very long way for us here, trying to appease the YouTube algorithm. So that single second you take to tap that thumbs up helps us greatly, to subscribe, to leave a comment. And of course, don't forget, all of our content, anything with a shelf life, like anything outside of the deeper dives and live before locks, you can find it in podcast form as well. So you're driving, you want to close your phone, you're doing something around the house, whatever it is, just want to close your phone, throw it in your pocket, everything in podcast form. We also have podcast exclusive content that is only in podcast form and can't be found on YouTube. So check that out if you haven't done so yet. All right, let's copy paste. Date said Eagles got exposed last night. No, they didn't. They got exposed last week, and they exposed themselves in previous weeks. They just found ways to win. Matt and I can disagree on this. That's okay. We can disagree on this.
I'm not saying that they didn't get exposed. I think they're a top 3 team in the NFC. And I think if you made the line today with the 49ers or Dallas, I don't think it's changed that much, even though that's who they've lost to the last 2 weeks.
I don't disagree. I would say that they're a top 3 team in the NFC for sure. But also, once you get past Dallas and San Francisco, I mean, what is there? Lions just lost.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they're more than like 3-4 point underdogs. in those games, which is right there. That's like a 42% win expectancy.
At home, you're saying?
Yeah, I we'll call it neutral field, even though they don't play that till the Super Bowl. But at home, I think they're probably like a 1 point-ish dog to both of them, maybe 2 or 3, and then a little wider if it's away. I mean, they're right there.
So I think if it was a neutral location against the Niners, it's a touchdown spread.
No way.
I think so.
The Packers are 6-point favorites against the Giants, who are basically an XFL team. No way.
All right. I hope. All right. All right.
There's no way, dude.
I think
Touchdown favorites.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
luckily we don't have this hypothetical spread, but
I mean, it might not move. It might not open there, but I think it would move there. I do.
we'll
Dude,
see.
They,
The
they
Niners-
could beat each other. You might not need to play them both.
The Niners were just 3-point favorites in Philly, and they beat the brakes off of them.
Yeah.
You might be right.
Like, they won by, what was it, 30 points or whatever, and they were 3-point road favorites. I don't know.
You could be right on that. That is a good point.
Schedule 2, 5 rough games in a row. Like
Mike, stop
monster
making
games.
excuses for the
I'm not.
Eagles.
No.
Stop. Just
I'm saying
stop.
that. Hey, they held
Stop.
Miami to 1 touchdown.
Yeah,
Who
and
else did that?
Miami got penalized on every single play that they had.
So did
And-
we last night.
We deserved it. We did. We were
I know,
whatever. No one wants to hear me talk about this. Let's get into Monday Night Football. We'll start with quarterbacks, Matt. I will say, and I know you agree with me, these 2-game slates are pretty fun. They're pretty fun, right? You enjoy these?
Yeah, I love them. The biggest thing you need to be aware of, I think, is just how many people you're playing against. It operates like a showdown where you do have to consider duplication. Honestly, I think you have to consider duplication a little bit more. I mean, you have more roster slots, but with showdown, you have like the flexibility of your captain, and you could run into a lot of dupes on showdown slates as well as these 2-gamers. So that's really the only big difference. Otherwise, ownership, like 50% ownership is not that high. So you just kind of have to tailor all of that to the size of the slate. But otherwise, yeah, I love these slates.
Yeah, man. And it's fun because we have Tyreek Hill projected for 80% ownership today.
Yeah, he's too low too.
He should just be, 100. Well, you're saying just clean sweep it across every lineup, 100%.
Yeah, you would need him to get hurt on like the first play for him to fail.
I hope that's not foreshadowing here because you're right. Tyreek Hill's in a phenomenal spot, man. They're 14-point favorites. He needs to average just a couple yards over 100 per game over the remainder of the season to have 2,000 yards.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
He might legitimately win the MVP, but I don't know. Brock Purdy kind of has separated himself recently.
Yeah, yesterday too. I hope that Tyreek Hill gets 2,000 in 16 games because then it feels legit, right? It feels way more legit in 16 than 17 games.
Yeah, I saw a stat on this. It's funny. We talk about like him versus Calvin Johnson. You can also break it down by routes, and Calvin Johnson ran significantly more routes that year. So yeah, you do have the game thing, but when you break it down on like a per snap per route basis, it kind of removes the extra game that Tyreek Hill has played because he honestly hasn't played nearly as much as Calvin Johnson did that year where he broke it.
For sure. But you know how optics work.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. NFL wanted more money, changed the season length. You're going to have a lot of rules broken in the next few years.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, and a lot of records. Quarterback, let's make it happen. So at the quarterback position, pretty cut and dry. You have Tua Tagovailoa, Jordan Love, Will Levis, Tommy DeVito. So Will Levis he had one game early on. It was the first game he started against Atlanta, and everyone's like, man, maybe there's something here. Remember the 3-touchdown DeAndre Hopkins game? One of those touchdowns, clearly offensive pass interference on DeAndre Hopkins, but let's not let that get in the way of a good success story. Either way, it's a good game. Outside of that, though, Will Levis has been to say he's been pedestrian might be too big of a compliment. Now you go up against the Miami team as a 14-point dog. You're going to have to throw the ball. There's no doubt about that. It feels like a spot where Derrick Henry could get phased out, although they're not going to want that to happen. But Miami's healthier now. That secondary's healthier now. it's a tough spot. You have Tommy DeVito as a 6-point dog at home against Green Bay. And then you have Jordan Love against the New York Giants, who their defense has been super hit or miss. They've performed relatively well against subpar offenses. And then Tua Tagovailoa, like, he's far and away the best quarterback on this slate. It's not even close. Far and away the best weapons on this slate. Now the question, though, is, like, how do we make this work from a roster construction standpoint? Because his price point is also $1,300 higher than the next closest player.
Yeah, I find Tua pretty easy to play. There's a lot of open salary on this 2-game slate, largely because of like Christian Watson opened some really cheap value. The Giants have consolidated a little bit, so you also have options down there with that team. So you can go pretty cheap at receiver. Tucker Kraft also an option. I mean, Chigga Okonkwo being among the most expensive tight ends in the slate kind of tells you the layout of the land there. So there's tons of value. I find it pretty easy to get Tua. If you're playing cash, I think he's an easy consideration. Honestly, for tournaments, man, like, I'm probably just going to X out Will Levis and DeVito and only play Tua and Jordan Love across field sizes. If you're playing small field, like, no question, I'm not even considering Levis or DeVito. And honestly, man, these two guys are so bad that in large field, I might honestly just play Tua and Jordan Love. It's so easy to get to them today. I don't know why you wouldn't.
You know what? I don't disagree. I really don't. And we saw the one good game from Tommy DeVito against Washington. Matt, you might have a 20 DK point game against Washington Commanders.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I can't believe he actually did something, but if you were to draw up a matchup where it occurred, that would be the one. I mean, Green Bay is an awesome pass rush. The New York Giants offensive line hasn't gotten any better. They're still down a couple guys because of injuries. He's going to be under duress tonight. I mean, I don't know what he's been doing during the bye week. He's been like reviewing food. I mean, Tommy, you suck. Maybe you should be practicing instead of like messing around on the internet.
I mean, Jair Alexander's out, but does it really matter in this spot? You talked about Green Bay's pass rush. Does it really matter?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not like Jair's played a lot this year.
Right.
And I mean, he's barely played.
They held the Chiefs to under 20. Again, the Chiefs are very good at holding themselves under 20 points as well. Did you see the Travis Kelce just beautiful backwards pass that got negated due to Kadarius Toney lining up offsides?
Oh yeah.
How many times does that team shoot them? How many times do those wide receivers shoot themselves in the foot? It's insane, dude. That I'm not saying they'd be undefeated, but if you had wide receivers with, even a handful of brain cells that they could rub together, that team would have wins in like 3 or 4 of the games that they've lost, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, they've missed a lot on their wide receivers, which, I mean, you had Tyreek Hill. Maybe you should have signed him. But, I mean, you also could sign like some middling free agent wide receivers. I mean, there's other receivers that aren't as expensive as Tyreek Hill. Like, you could go out and get a DJ Moore, something like that if we're looking in hindsight. I don't know why you don't do things like that. And for everyone they've hit on, they've missed on a lot of draft picks. Like, Sky Moore is horrible.
Absolutely.
I mean, Rashee Rice, for all the good he does, he has a lot of bad plays too. But, I mean,
what about Mecole Hardman, who they drafted in the 2nd round?
Mecole Hardman couldn't even start in college.
He couldn't even start on the Jets either.
Well, that's a little harder than starting in college. But yeah.
I know. I'm it was playing it off as the Jets might be a college. Oh, the Jets got the win yesterday, but no, it's bad. You know what I mean, though? It's like brain dead plays. It's not just that they have receivers who aren't good at getting separation or aren't good route runners. It's just the mindless drops and boneheaded plays that every time. Dude, that Travis Kelce play was one of the most heads-up, smartest plays you'll ever see a pass catcher make in the NFL. And what happened? It resulted in negative yards on a penalty, and they lost.
Yeah, I mean, they traded a lot to get Kadarius Toney, too, and he plays like 15% of the snaps.
Yeah, just enough to fuck things up is what he does.
It's like you could have used the original draft pick on a receiver, and instead you traded it for an unproven receiver.
You know what's tough with Tommy DeVito, even if you wanted to take that shot? Listen in the 3 games he started. Listen to the target shares for his wide receivers. Slayton 16%, Wan'Dale Robinson 15%, Barkley 15%, Shepard 14%, Hyatt 12%, Bellinger 10%, Hodgins 7%. Like there is no clear pecking order there. Yeah, Jalen Hyatt's had 37% of air yards on the team, but outside of that, 12 targets, 11, 10, 9, 7, and 6 among 7 different wide receivers. Good luck trying to figure that out.
Yeah, what I will say is that it's moved in Wan'Dale and Jalen Hyatt's direction,
Yeah.
but I don't feel confident that it remains there. So if you're playing any of those guys, I think it's got to be Wan'Dale or Hyatt just because you've seen them get a little bit more recently, but we've also seen guys like Sterling Shepard pop up randomly, more Darius Slayton. So I don't feel confident in that. And to your point, it almost makes it impossible to stack DeVito with confidence. I'd rather just play a Giants one-off receiver and not have all that systemic risk from just a horrifyingly bad offense. And plus, Saquon's the best running back play on the slate, just raw projection, not factoring in price. So if you're already putting Saquon in like your lineups because of his safety, do I really want DeVito and a receiver and then have 3 or 4 Giants in my lineup? And the answer is absolutely no. So I'm probably not going to play any DeVito, and I'll be light on the receivers, I imagine, too.
Me too. I have no problem mixing in some guys like Hyatt, though. Honestly, Hyatt would probably be my preferred option on the Giants because at least he's getting opportunities downfield. Unfortunately, they're coming from Tommy DeVito. But if I'm playing a cheap guy like that and the target share is spread so far around, give me a couple shots on a deep ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly how I would like to play like the Giants receivers. Hyatt and Wan'Dale. Wan'Dale is different than Hyatt. He's getting there probably on like 5 or 6 receptions, and then hopefully he can just make some yards after contact. Hyatt, you're dealing with the prayer yards, and hopefully he breaks one. He's open, and DeVito has enough time to hit him, which is going to be a problem, or he just catches something contested that he's not supposed to. Because those are the kind of the balls that Hyatt's going to be looking at tonight.
For sure. Dude, listen to the air yards on the Giants over the last 3 games with DeVito. 203 for Hyatt, 110 for Slayton, 37 for Wan'Dale Robinson has the same amount of air yards as Saquon Barkley. So, like you said, you're relying on him for, if this ends up being a low-scoring slate, Wan'Dale Robinson could be in the winning lineup if he has, 6 for 40 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those scenarios where you're not expecting Wan'Dale Robinson to do anything spectacular. You're hoping he gives you 9 or 10 at a dirt cheap price point on PPR.
Yeah, I like his safety for that reason. If you're
Agreed.
playing cash game small field stuff, he does fit in a lot of lineups because of his price tag, and I do think he provides a lot of safety. Yeah, I mean, you're sacrificing upside without a doubt. It's probably unlikely he scores, but yeah, I mean, these are all bad receivers, so you're taking shots on guys we don't feel comfortable about, but you have to because it's a 2-game slate.
Ninja Choke said Tony's actually really good. They don't win that last Super Bowl without him. Well, that is an opinion. Copy paste days. Lavi, please don't tell me you're siding with Mahomes' cope crying side. When did I say that? Wasn't Mahomes crying about the refs?
I think so.
Yeah.
He was definitely mad about him. He's not happy, but yeah, I mean.
You know what I will side with Mahomes on? His pass catchers stink. I'll side with him on
Kelsey's
that.
old.
What's that?
Kelsey's old.
Yeah. Are you out on Kelsey? You think it's the end of the road? Towards the end of the road as like a premier elite tight end?
No, he's still among the best tight ends. I'm out at him at like 8K, which he has in routine.
You know what it's like? I'm out on Kelsey as being the only guy you need in an offense, right? Like they clearly went into this season kind of thinking, as long as we have Kelsey, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not really working out for him as well as they thought it was.
No. Yeah. Copy paste date. That's my point. I'm not siding with him. I'm blaming the pass catchers. Of course, Mahomes isn't publicly going to blame all his pass catchers. Anyway, I'm with you. I don't know how much we need to do breaking down quarterback. Like it's Tua Tagovailoa and it's Jordan Love. Are there any? Like I'll play some DeAndre Hopkins. I don't have an issue with that. But to your point that you just made a minute ago, yeah, I'll take some flyers on wide receivers for the Giants because they're near minimum salary, and I'm going to need to do that, particularly if I'm getting to Tua and Tyreek Hill stacks. And I'll hope that, the prayer yards connect on a Jalen Hyatt or Wan'Dale Robinson can get me 6 receptions for 30 yards. But, and I'll play DeAndre Hopkins because he could definitely have another 12 target game here, particularly as a 14-point dog on the road. I just don't know why I need to tie the quarterbacks into this today. And really, the price points on these quarterbacks, I don't think they're far enough apart from Love and Tagovailoa to even make the argument there. Like if Tua was 8,600 and you had this crazy price point and Love was 7K and they price adjusted everything for a 2-game slate with 2 other bad quarterbacks, fine. Like Tua's only $2,000 more than Will Levis.
Yeah, which is not enough. I mean, to put this simply, like Will Levis and Tommy DeVito aren't even like NFL talents at the quarterback position. Like these guys are terrible. They don't, and Levis specifically, they do not use his skill set well. The guy's actually really athletic. Like he had a ton of rushing yards back at Penn State. He had 1 design rush attempt last week. So, I mean, they don't even know how to use him. So he could be a decent fantasy asset, just doesn't have good pass catchers. O-line is among the worst in the NFL. He's not running by design. Just a complete disaster for this team. And they also have a really low implied team total. Scoring expectation here is horrifyingly bad. Plus, when you look at some of the other positions on the slate, you can find some other guys around 10% ownership that I think you feel at least better about DeVito and Will Levis for that matter. So to me, I would just rather take my leverage elsewhere.
Exactly. Let's talk about running backs. Before we do, though, Underdog Fantasy, sponsor of the NFL Strategy Show. Matt, I have a question for you, if you don't mind indulging me here. Yeah?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So the 2023, I know you're going to answer it anyway. The 2023 playoff gauntlet, right? It's $25 entry, $1.5 million prize pool, which is massive, $150,000 up top. I love it because it's a flat enough payout. Like second place is 75K, third place is 55. Even if you finish 10th, it's still 15K. So it's not like this garbage payout structure where they front load everything. And now if you don't finish first place in a really tough contest, you get nothing. It's a nice payout structure for sure. It's wild card round, divisional round, championship, then of course Super Bowl, and you're drafting guys to make it all the way through those rounds. It's awesome. I do it every year. I've yet to have a ton of success. I get a few teams through the first and then it starts to get ugly because you're advancing through the rounds with these teams. What is your, because I know there's guys in here that maybe haven't heard of this approach yet, or I'm sorry, these contests yet. What is, like Rance, he said, what contest? We'll tell you right now. What would your strategy be to a contest like this? Because it's so far removed. It's so different than any other contest we see in the DFS or best ball space. And when would you enter it?
Yeah, it's really fun. I was actually thinking about this a lot this morning and trying to develop like a portfolio strategy. I like starting right now because you can get some teams on like the fringe of the playoffs, a little under-owned, if you will. The first thing I would consider is how many people you're playing against. Some of these have a ton of entrants. And from there, obviously, the first thing you want to consider and try to get players on is teams that are going to go deep in the playoffs. But as you get later in the rounds, you also want to consider how you're going to get different. That's how you'll separate yourself in these large tournaments. So then taking either really good players on teams not expected to go very far, maybe a team gets a lucky win and you have them, they go further than they were expected, you can win that way. Or you find some players on teams that are projected to go far that maybe aren't rostered a lot. So, I mean, your wide receiver threes, like I'll use Philly for an example. If you drafted like a Quez Watkins, he's not going to be very owned. He's not likely to do anything, but in the event he does, you'll be one of the only people that has him. So just a couple of considerations for tournaments like this.
For sure. And Race Fan said you want to draft teams that have a legitimate shot of making the Super Bowl. You said the same thing. Of course. But I'm telling you right now, because I've done these, it is like stacking them, it's doable, but it can be really tough with these good teams because those guys go in quick succession at one after another. Like, are you okay loading up on a team early, maybe later in the draft where you go, they have great skill players, they have a dynamic offense. I'm not sure they make a deep run, but it could get me to a point where like maybe the back half of my lineup, or like maybe would you be okay stacking like a good team, but not getting all of their best players? You know what I mean? Like a Super Bowl contender, but not getting all their best players because it's really difficult.
Yeah, it is really difficult. And I mean, to your point, the teams that are projected to reach the Super Bowl or at least have the best odds are going to come off the board really fast. It's going to be hard to stack them. So if you have like a stack from a premier team that maybe doesn't go quite as far, you can still win that way because like, let's just keep using the Eagles for an example. In the event they go to the Super Bowl, is someone really going to have Hurts stacked with Devontae Smith or AJ Brown? Maybe Goddard, but it's still kind of unlikely that you actually achieve like a full Eagles stack and someone can bury you in that round. And the other thing too is, the wild card teams get an extra round too. If you have like a wild card team that makes it to the NFC Championship, that's the same exact team or same amount of games as like a team playing with a bye that makes it to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways you can approach it. Yeah.
And really the one way you get those mega stacks is you have to reach. Like you know what I mean? If you want to get Jalen and AJ Brown, you have to go, you're going to be taking certain guys earlier than their ADP, and you have to live with that if that's what you want to do, which I think is actually reasonable if you're trying to build like a super team that you think makes the Super Bowl. Anyway, figured you guys want to jump in. 100% first match deposit bonus up to $100. If you deposit 100, you have 200 now in your account. If you put 50 in, it's 100 now. 20, it's 40. Whatever you do is double. The link's in the description and it's in chat. They have daily best ball contests for basketball, hockey, football. You have the pick'em, where if you're not in legal sports betting states, up to 20x your entry. If you hit 5 of 5, you could do 2 of 2. You could do 2 pick plays, 3 or 4, however you want to approach it. But make sure when you sign up, this is the big thing, you're getting the bonus if you use the link in the description and chat, but you're also getting free squares. So basically for any new users, every day there's a free square out there where it'd be like tonight, over half a yard for Tua Tagovailoa. Use that, plug it into your pick and plays, and make sure that you've already knocked one out. And now you just have to finish the rest. So a lot of incentive to check that out. $1.5 million best ball tournament for the playoffs as well. 1 million different formats on Underdog. If you're not there yet, it's an awesome place to play. Check it out. Link in the description and in chat. All right, let's talk running backs. So Barkley is going to play essentially the whole game, Matt. Like 80+% of snaps is really a lock for him at this point, barring any injury or anything. And then Devon Achane, how about this? He comes back from a pretty significant hiatus because he returned and then got hurt again. So he's played like 1 full game since week 5. 61% of snaps last game. Really solid outing. No, he didn't average 12 yards per attempt. Shocking. But 2 touchdowns on the ground, targeted 4 times, 3 for 40, 3 for 30 through the air. Are you willing to say that he is the lead back in Miami now?
No, I actually think it's Mostert. A lot of that work came in the second half when they just put Mostert on ice.
Yeah.
So I'm not confident in saying that, but I definitely am not saying it's him. At best, I think this is 50-50. At worst, I think this is like 60-40 in favor of Mostert. And I mean, that makes sense to me too. Like every time they try to give Achane more work, he just gets hurt.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're looking at a split.
Same. I would project this direct 50-50.
How, with that in mind, then, if we're doing it that way, and you're talking ownership here, for what it's worth, I've been burned on this earlier in the year, where I went heavier on Mostert over Devon Achane when everyone was excited about him, and Achane was way higher owned, and they got the exact same workload. They played almost identical snaps, but Achane just had the bigger game, and it burned me. But here you're looking at double the ownership from Devon Achane to Raheem Mostert today, 47%, and then around 23% to Mostert. How do you use that to your advantage if you're going into these big tournaments?
Yeah, you said it right there. That's the main reason why I have more interest in Mostert today. If I were playing like cash games, I think you just put HN right in there. The efficiency is worthwhile if this is a 50-50 split. But I mean, if it is a 50-50 split, a lot of this is going to come down to who scores a touchdown, who gets an extra carry here, gets an extra target there. And at half the ownership, almost the same price, yeah, Mostert's actually cheaper. I'd rather just play the low-owned guy in this offense. They both have had big games. They both have had big games together. And I'm just trying to bet on Miami backs that are under-owned, basically, which to me, Mostert is. Again, I think this is just a direct 50-50 timeshare.
Hey, Matt, we got a $20 super chat from, forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Prime Voltatang. He said, no question. Just want to say great advice last week from Loughran and Matt. Put in 46 lineups for Pitt, New England Thursday night football game. And every lineup cashed won $1,400, mostly for tying for first in the 100K first down. Every lineup cashed, Matt.
That is unbelievably impressive. I've had slates where none of my lineups cashed, but not every single one. So yeah, congrats on the success. That's awesome. You deserve it.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Thanks for the super chat and congrats. And glad we could be of some help here for sure. I'm just looking at running backs, and if you go to our ownership projections, also I ran the Sims earlier, and the exposures I got on the running back position. So if I were to just sort by running back position, it was, let's see, running back. This scares me. And this is assuming Aaron Jones plays. I got a lot of Jones, a lot of Barkley, a lot of Devon Achane, some AJ Dillon, and essentially not a lot of anyone else. This is one of those spots where like your own personal thoughts kind of have to be injected into the mix. They don't have to be, but I might, because every time we've seen Aaron Jones return from these injuries, these lower body injuries, he has slowly worked back in, Matt. And I was very cautious about that. I talked to you guys about it for weeks on end. Like, yeah, Aaron Jones is back, but how confident are we after knowing his track record and his checkered injury history? How confident are we that he comes back and gets a full workload? I'd be lying to you if I said I was confident that he was going to be back in full, even if he's active tonight, Matt. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I probably should have brought this up before you went on the Aaron Jones, but Pelissero not long ago said he's not expected to play.
Oh, well, I was making
literally while we're on the show. So I mean, unless you're
okay. So I'm not crazy. That was
no,
while
like
we were on
it
the
literally
show?
just came through, and I just have push notifications.
Okay, feel free to interrupt me on that one. I have push notifications too, but I just didn't see it. So okay, well that makes life a little easier. I kind of wish he was playing because I would be massively underweight on Aaron Jones if he was active.
Yeah, it makes things easy, but I don't think there's like an easy leverage point. AJ Dillon should slide right into cash lineups now. He's just such an easy click at that price.
You love AJ Dillon.
I mean, he's terrible, but he has a full workload. He's playing an inept Giants team as a touchdown favorite on a running back slate that's not real great. So I think he's pretty easy to just slide right into your lineup.
Kind of forcing
for cash games specifically. I mean, tournaments more than willing to fade a player who's not good.
What about Derrick Henry today?
He is a fade for me. I don't think it's really much of a question. He's 31% on it. We have to rerun this obviously because the Jones news just came through. But like we had Mostert less owned than Derrick Henry. I'd rather just play him straight up. I imagine AJ Dillon's probably going to come up. I wonder how much more owned he will be than Derrick Henry, but they're 14-point underdogs. Derrick Henry needs to play with positive game script. He's in a timeshare. You have two backs that are 200 and 500 more than him in Miami, who are right on the other side of this game, projected for way more touchdown expectation, way more efficiency. I mean, there's injuries to the Tennessee defensive line. I think one hole people might try to poke in this team is that, the toughest matchup like for Miami is going to be up against that Tennessee front. They don't have Jeffrey Simmons today, who's the anchor of their interior. So I don't even think the matchup's that hard for Miami. I'd rather just straight up play them. I'd rather straight up play AJ Dillon over Derrick Henry at this point. Like Tennessee uses Tajay Spears as their pass game back. So I mean, this is extremely risky rostering Henry. I think what you need for him to have a full good game is Tennessee gets the opening kickoff, score immediately, and then they play in positive to neutral game script the whole time, which probably isn't likely.
Man, I tell you. Oh, wait, real quick. Michael Hoff with a super chat. Thanks, dude. If you had anything to say, go for it. But I appreciate you, man. Steven with a super chat said, play them together. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get into all of this, but would you consider Tajay Spears?
I don't think so. He's really thin, and I mean, he's really close in price to AJ Dillon now.
I know.
I thought about him a lot more when I thought Aaron Jones was going to play, but now I mean, you have like a full workload for 300 more. In an awesome matchup too.
I want to say no. I want to say that I'm not playing Tajay Spears, but there's a part of me that goes, man, if they fall behind early, like, is he just going to be on the field for, like, is he going to play 60% of snaps if they go behind early?
He could.
I don't know if it's enough, because then you're really just paying $5K to lean on a guy and hope that he gets passing down work coming from Will Levis, right? That's the other problem here. Like, it's kind of multi-pronged approach of how things have to go in order to get there. And like, one, he has to be on the field. Well, one, they have to be playing from behind. Two, he has to be on the field, all of those. Three, he has to get the targets. And four, those targets have to be decent coming from Will Levis.
Yeah, it's a lot that needs to go right for him. But I guess for a large field, it's kind of like you have to consider some of these guys as leverage points. Depending on how large the field is, there's a 500K tonight. If you're playing that, I'd take a look at some of these players. But again, the leverage you're gaining with Mostert is just something I would much rather click on than Tajay Spears. Obviously, monitor this throughout the day. Monitor this once it's updated for the recent Aaron Jones news. But man, like, I would just rather take a leverage point with Mostert over Achane. And yeah, I saw a chat. I think you can play Mostert and Achane together, and that'll probably be fairly contrarian.
I absolutely think you can. Yeah, you can. Because if you're doing so, what does that mean? That, I mean, sure, you could play a 3 running back lineup, but you'd be foregoing a similarly priced Henry, a similarly priced Barkley. Barkley's not a lock to score in that offense. You know, they have a very low total. Derrick Henry's certainly not a lock to score. Another team with a super low total. Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert could definitely both give you, like, looking at the rest of the running back field, that might be the optimal pairing today. That wouldn't shock me even a little bit if that was the optimal pairing as the 1 and 2 running backs.
It wouldn't surprise me either. For everything we have at the running back position, Saquon plays for such a bad offense. We've seen him come out, touch the ball, I don't know, 18 to 20 times and finish with like 6 DraftKings points. AJ Dillon's AJ Dillon. He often just finds a way to be bad. Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears are on a Titans team that's a 14-point underdog. I don't think it's that crazy for Achane and Mostert to finish 1-2 in running back scoring. I don't think it's likely, but I think this is firmly in the range of outcomes tonight. There's a lot of bad running backs.
Absolutely. And, you know, another issue is when you start looking at some of these cheap options, where do we go? I mean, Jeff Wilson, unless this game, last game got wildly out of hand, and Jeff Wilson still only played 5 snaps, right? So aside from that, where do we look? Patrick Taylor at 4,400. I mean, maybe that's viable, but his workload has still been very, very low. Who are any other viable cheap running backs once you get below AJ Dillon? And I'll say Tajay Spears because he basically that's where it stops for me. I don't know if I'm willing to go cheaper than that today.
I'm not. I don't think there's anyone else viable beyond this. You're banking on an injury.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, you're banking on an AJ Dillon injury, or like, even if one of the Miami running backs gets hurt, it's still probably just a lot of the other ones. So.
Right. And I think the only situation this is really that viable is probably New York, because Matt Breida isn't getting any ownership at all. But I mean, if Derrick Henry goes down, it's Tajay Spears. It's not some rando on the street. If AJ Dillon goes down, it's Patrick Taylor. And then Miami, it's likely just going to be the counterpart, whichever one were to get hurt. If it's Achane, it's Mostert, and vice versa. Like, I don't think Jeff Wilson's playing a huge role. So I don't know. Like, the injury thing isn't even that live on the slate to begin with. It's kind of just Breida, but I'm not playing Matt Breida today.
No, no. That'd have to be like a 9 million person field.
Yeah, no chance.
Mike, I don't know if I thought this into existence. I think when I used just a random example of the free squares that Underdog gives out, I think I said Tua Tagovailoa over a half a yard.
You did.
I did, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
you did.
Well, they just dropped a free square for new customers. Tua Tagovailoa over half a total yard well, I say over because you're not taking the under. How about that, Matt? They just dropped the new customer special for new people signing up, and it's Tua half a total yard.
Yeah, man. Today's your day. You're predicting the free squares.
Yeah, man. Well, they certainly weren't going to go Tommy DeVito, so I had the inside track on that one. But yeah, like I said, guys, Underdog, link down there in the description and chat. They just dropped it, new customer special for today. If you're not there yet, you're getting, on top of the deposit bonus, the Tua half a total yard. Take the over on that, please. All right, anything else at running back?
I don't think so.
Dude, I think I'm probably, the more I look at this, the more I want to get some HN Mostert lineups in there together, especially if it's a 50-50 split, even though it's a tough matchup on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. For tournaments, I love that. For cash games, I think I'm playing some combination of one of the Miami backs, Saquon and AJ Dillon.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'd probably in cash games go HN.
Yeah, he's not hard to fit. I have a lineup. I think I might play cash tonight. This lineup is pretty sick.
Tyreek Hill is pretty expensive. Well, very expensive. It's him and Jalen Waddle up there at the top. Amazes me that week in and week out, Jalen Waddle's price point, he's priced like he's priced as one of the more elite receivers in the league. Yet on the season, he hasn't functioned as such, honestly. And a lot of that is just a casualty of him playing alongside Tyreek Hill and having, good running backs that space the field and good play calling where he hasn't needed to do a ton. Tyreek Hill, I totally get the price point. I mean, Waddle's kind of just tagging along for the ride each week with these high implied totals, but he's been pretty pedestrian. Matt, don't get me wrong. I think Jalen Waddle today on a 2-game slate against Tennessee obviously is viable. But it surprises me that every week this guy's price point stays exactly where it is. It doesn't budge regardless of what he does or fails to do.
Yeah, this is a DraftKings thing. They won't adjust prices on skill position players, but then they uniformly bring up the prices of defenses. So every single week, you got to debate the likes of Michael Mayer and Jonathan Mingo. Just really great for the product overall when that's where we're at. And without their adjustments, I mean, they leave guys like Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, these receivers that have had success way up there in price, which makes the decision point extremely easy for low risk contests, cash game, small field. Playing Tyreek Hill, it's not even a debate. The only thing is, game theory wise, once you get into a large enough tournament, where do you start considering the Jalen Waddle leverage? I think the 500K is fine. Probably has to be something close to that size. I mean, unless you're playing just stone chalk everywhere else, like Tyreek Hill is just a significantly better play. He's projected for over 10 more raw points than Jalen Waddle. Just an asinine price from DraftKings.
Anybody could tune into a YouTube show where we're talking about like Tyreek Hill's a good play and guys, you should play Barkley and Tua and that stuff. But if we're not talking about the actual game theory and the strategy that goes into this, you can do all of this work on your own. So I hope that, week in and week out, Matt and I provide that to you, whether it's a showdown show or a 2-game slate. And I mentioned this, Matt, only because you just talked about, okay, Waddle could be leverage, but at what point? And that's kind of the question I have is how do you come to that personally, come to a conclusion like that where you go, okay, Tyreek Hill is right now we're projecting him for 81% ownership. We're projecting Waddle for less than half of that, but we also have Tyreek Hill projected for so many more points. When does it become smart to use a guy like Waddle as leverage, either just playing for the breakout Waddle game and the pedestrian Tyreek Hill game, or for the Hill injury or whatever? And when does it become not sensible to do so, even though there's a huge disparity in ownership?
So what I'll say on this is our tools do a great job with that designation. As a heuristic, if you don't have the tools, the Sims, the larger the field, I think the more comfortable you are playing a guy like Waddle. And it might not be at the expense of Tyreek Hill. Like I ran some Sims this morning. Obviously, I'll rerun them again because we had massive AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones news, so it'll change things. But I don't think it'll change things too much with like the Waddle lineups, where in the larger field stuff, a lot of the lineups were like Tagovailoa, Hill, Waddle, and Achane, like a Miami onslaught. It's not necessarily at the expense of Tyreek Hill. It could just be full Miami Dolphins onslaught instead. But to me, it's larger field stuff. That point, it's hard to say, which is why the Sims are such a great tool for this. But I mean, probably to really feel good about Jalen Waddle in a lineup, like at least 5,000 entries, maybe even 10. And part of the reason is, yeah, you and I could come on here, say the obvious, Tyreek Hill's an awesome play, but it does come down to pricing and ownership. Tyreek Hill at 9,200 versus Waddle at his price tag. We should probably have Waddle at like 6K and Tyreek at like 11. And I'm not kidding, man. Like Tyreek Hill, like just if you have our projections, just go look at the raw value scores. We have Tyreek Hill at 2.79. The next closest player is Waddle at let's see, DeAndre Hopkins at 2.17. It's almost like a full point difference. Raw projection, Tyreek Hill's 25.63. Number 2 is Waddle, but he's at 15.5. Like this is just a DraftKings pricing error on the expensive side. Tyreek Hill is too cheap at 9,200. It's insane to say, but it's true.
I only laugh because you are right in saying that such a huge gap is appropriate here, but it's not there. In what world should Jalen Waddle be, what is it, $1,700 cheaper? In what world?
And probably just the answer, like maybe Jalen Waddle, this could be an efficient price. I think you could argue because he is in the same range, price adjusted as like Hopkins, Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, Wandale Hyatt. They're all kind of in this range. The pricing error here is Tyreek Hill, who's not in this range. His value projection is through the roof. So maybe it's just, all right, we do work with a full salary. You're very clearly prioritizing Tyreek Hill. And then from there, are you prioritizing Waddle in addition to him? So this is more an error on the Tyreek Hill pricing than anything else, in my opinion.
I personally lean on the tools for this because it's easy to make those mental mistakes thinking there's leverage when there isn't. I'll run the Sims for this. If you have a lineup generator, which is like the Sims Lite, that'll make your life easier for sure. As always, you guys know, if you ever have any questions about these tools, if you're already a sub, we have tutorials, but hit me up. My DMs are always open on Twitter. Happy to answer them. I know Greg's are too, but links in the description and chat for all of our tools. Sims Data Package, Sims Max, really, really powerful tools here that make these decisions easier on you. You can still make decisions, but this allows you to let the tools make decisions for you when you don't know the right answers, because they are simulating the entire field. They're simulating this contest tens of thousands of times and finding the lineups in these Sims that make the most sense and have the highest Simmed ROI. It's a game changer without question. So if you ever want to check those out, man, awesome tools, and still a lot of football left in the season to win some money doing so. All right, the rest of wide receivers, like I said, I do like DeAndre Hopkins, Matt. I don't know if we're on the same page there, but just the volume alone at that price point, I think is fair. I have no issues with it. Romeo Doubs has been a monster target. He's been a huge end zone target, some of the highest end zone targets in the year in the league among all players this year. Christian Watson is out, so you also have Reed that becomes viable. And then, look, it's not fun, but we mentioned this, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. we talked about it at the top of the show. I'll take some shots on the Jalen Hyatt. Hope that those air yards or prayer yards, as you referred to them, I hope that one or two of those converts, or hope that a Wan'Dale Robinson ends up, catching 5 receptions in the flat and picking up a few yards after the catch. As far as cheap guys go, that's probably where I lean. Maybe I'll take a shot or two on a cheap Miami receiver and just hope that tethered to that great offense, they catch a touchdown.
Yeah, that's really what you're hoping for. I do like this cheaper range. I'm surprised they're not coming in with more ownership. And maybe it's just the fact that there's so many of them, they kind of just cannibalize each other. I'm a little surprised Dobbs and Reed are significantly, well, not significantly, they're like 10 to 12% more owned than Wicks, who comes at a cheaper price point. Wicks should be a full-time player tonight with the absence of Christian Watson. And we've seen target differences in these players, but they're not vast. It's still pretty flat in Green Bay. I wouldn't even be surprised to see like Wicks have a rogue game where he leads the team in targets. Jordan Love doesn't have strong preferences, it appears. So I like Wicks a lot at 3,800, like him as leverage off Dobbs and Reed. I'm probably playing Wan'Dale in like cash games, low risk contests for the reasons you mentioned, Hyatt more tournament play. I think it gets interesting once you get beyond that. I think you can take some shots on like Slayton. Maybe Treylon Burks plays more. I don't know. This guy had the weirdest usage ever since returning from a concussion. Like he barely played in the game, and I don't understand who gets eased in after getting concussed. I don't know. It's not like he had a hamstring injury, but that was helpful for Nick Westbrook-Akine, who played a lot. He's not very good, and he would be the player that is coming. I mean, he would probably play less if Burks plays more. So I think I'll just mix and match those players briefly in lineups. But yeah, it gets pretty dusty down here pretty fast.
Last question at wide receiver, and NBA strategy show coming up after this. If you had to pick between one of Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, and River Craycraft in a Tua stack where you needed salary relief, which one would it be?
I think it would be Braxton Berrios, just based on playing time. River Craycraft only 4 routes in their last game. Said Wilson had 9. So, I mean, he played more snaps than Berrios, but Berrios had significantly more routes. So Berrios is my lean. Don't feel too strongly.
I can tell you guys right now that tight end won't take long. It's gross. I mean, dude, it's bad. The highest priced tight end is Chigakonkwo at 3,100. Then it's Kraft, Bellinger, under the assumption that he plays with Tommy DeVito throwing him the ball. Dude, I don't know. Durham Smythe. At this stage of the game, do I just play Durham Smythe at minimum salary with Tua Tagovailoa? Do I just play Chigakonkwo because he's talented and athletic, but he has a bad quarterback? We'll keep this quick because we got to get out of here. But is there a preference? Is there a hierarchy here for you?
My favorite is Kraft. As far as blend of playing time with quarterback talent, I think he offers you the most. Smythe plays a lot, but he's just uninvolved in the pass game. Kraft has a reasonable signal caller. He plays a ton, and the target share has been fine for him. I mean, Okonkwo plays a decent amount. He honestly plays less than Kraft, and his quarterback is atrocious. He's drawing more ownership than Kraft, which doesn't make any sense in my opinion. I think Kraft should be projected straight up ahead of Okonkwo. And Bellinger, honestly, he would be my second favorite on this list, but it's going to come down to like a game time decision with him. I imagine Lawrence Cager would be the main beneficiary. I'd have some interest in him if that's how it shakes out. But for me right now, Kraft 1, Bellinger 2, Okonkwo 3, Smythe 4.
Okay. Let's build a quick lineup before we get out of here. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Start at quarterback.
What size field?
We'll go large field.
All right, still Tagovailoa. Just a dumb
Yeah, I had a
question.
feeling that. All right, Tyreek Hill.
All right, I'm putting Achane in.
Okay. Let me go. Because I don't want to get, it's so easy to get super chalky here. I'll go with Reed.
Ooh, okay.
Not a fan?
No, I love Reed. I think he's fine. I'm playing
Okay.
Kraft.
Kraft. All right, I'm gonna mix things up real quick. Let me just see what we have here. I'll go Giants defense at 2,800.
Oh, Okay.
By the way, I don't care who the defense is. I don't care if I have players against them on this slate.
Yeah, me either. I'll play AJ Dillon. I think he's completely fine in this matchup, especially now that Jones is out.
Oh man, now we have 3 Packers.
It's a 2-game slate. You're just
it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. One mistake from Jordan Love and the Giants defense is fine. If you guys want to pay all the way up for Miami, I guess they're not that much. Let's see. I'll try plugging Miami in and see what happens. They're 3,400. Gives us 5,000 per the final 2 players. Let's see what happens if I go with, oh wait, you went Dillon, right? Okay. Let's see what happens if I plug Barkley in here. We have 3,000 left exactly.
Fortunately, there's players down here we can play. I'd probably throw a shot on Burks at that point, if that's who we're left with.
Okay.
Like just a blend of talent, he should play more.
This lineup will definitely be duped, but that's just you and me quickly making this.
What was the
I
last
actually
one?
kind of like it.
I like it too. So Treylon Burks. All right. We zeroed that out very quickly, having no idea what it was going to look like. Guys, appreciate you hanging out as always. Hit that thumbs up before you go. And as always, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski, me at Loughran_D, LOUGHY_D on the Twitter. And good luck today. I'll see you back here for Live Before Lock with Neil Orfield at 7 Eastern. Peace.